Let's get a quick take on the death of Cuban leader Fidel Castro last Friday. Met with mixed emotions. Castro's passing is significant both culturally and politically. Patty Calhoun from Westward. This made big news, even though he's not leading Cuba anymore. This was still big throughout the United States, obviously bigger in probably states like Florida than was Colorado, but general reactions that you saw.
Well, certainly the impact that he had on the Western Hemisphere and the world with the revolution in Cuba was undeniable. The visuals comparing Miami, for example, to Cuba, where there was open weeping, Miami, there's open celebrating. The other amazing thing was the timing, that he passed away just before the first commercial airlines came into Cuba from the U.S. on December 1st. Wow.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. I guess for folks who are talking about Fidel's legacy, sometimes we're making a change, or not a distinction between him and Raul Castro. Is Raul Castro's current leadership of Cuba just an extension of what we saw from Fidel?
Yes, and after Obama's appeasement, Raul has intensified the crackdown on dissidents. For example, arresting more of the ladies in white, the women who were protesting the tyranny there. Of course, you could go to North Korea and find people crying there too when the tyrant passes away. But I'm not sure I'd call it openly, because you can't do anything openly in Cuba other than what's approved by the government. He came in 1959 promising free and open elections in 18 months, one of his many lies. He and his brother continue to run the nation as a gigantic slave plantation. Calorie consumption per capita has dropped since they came in. The healthcare system is a disaster, despite the propaganda that is believed by people whom Lenin called useful idiots. You can only get antibiotics there on the black market. And when El Fidel got sick in 2006, he called for a Spanish doctor. His legacy is the tyrannical, murderous regimes currently in Nicaragua and Venezuela.
I'm going to chalk you up as not a fan. So, John Bowman from 5 Points News. It comes at a unique time for American history. As David referenced, we have different relations, courtesy of President Obama, but we may have even more different relations under a President Trump. What are your thoughts in this current era of American relations with Cuba?
Well, you know, I would say first off, Castro was a true revolutionary in every sense of the word. He kicked out the Sam Giancana out of Chicago. He kicked them out, and that was where everybody went to gamble. Havana, Ricky Ricardo, the whole bit. Now, when he came in, the white Cubans were, got out. The black and the brown Cubans stayed there, as David referenced the big plantation in the sky. The bottom line is, Castro ended up sending the prisoners and the mentally challenged to America. And then everybody else was left to get in a bathtub or whatever they wanted to float across the deal in. But the bottom line is, for me, I guess, in one sense, the Mariel boat lift, which came up in '61 with the Peter Pan boat lift, they got a lot of children out. And one of those kids that was able to get out with his two brothers was one of our past mayors, Bill Vidal. So without that, maybe we wouldn't have known Bill.
Yeah, that's a good point. Round out the panel today, Nick Garcia from Choctaw, Colorado. Thanks for joining us. What did you think of the announcement of the historic passing?
Thanks for having me. I think what was most fascinating was reading all the obituaries, and for me, how similar some of Fidel's tactics sort of mirror some of the things we're seeing with Donald Trump, as far as using the media and circumventing the media and creating his own direct line to the people, inciting, using the other tactic. Fidel, always painted America as this evil nation, and it will just be very fascinating to watch, to see what sort of parallels exist between Trump and Fidel in the way they go about communicating with the public.